Please join me in welcoming Kevin Kottam to the virtual stage so that we can hear about the importance and the power of mobility that can reignite performance. Kevin, the stage is yours.
Hello, everybody. It's wonderful to be here. And thank you very much, Aggie, for this wonderful invitation at the beginning that you have for bringing everybody from an international locations. I'm really, really grateful to all of you that have arrived today and very excited to share with you the next episode, which is really about reigniting our performance and throughout the power of mobility. How important this is for all of us. And may I share with you then, what's important here is that mobility fuels your performance. Mindset makes it possible. This is the must-have moment to move. And this is extremely vital in our life that we are fueled. It's like a car in many ways. The mindset is the driver of the car. The mobility is the gas in it. And the performance is what happens with that car. So think about yourself as the same way. What is empowering you to create your performance? Well, and this particular masterclass is really for leaders, professionals, decision makers, curious minds. And I want to ask you and to put into the chat, please, with a Y for yes, N for no, or M for maybe, when you're ready to move and reignite your performance. Let me hear. Yes, yes, yes. Okay, good, good, good. Excellent. Great. Thank you so much. Yes, and yes, and yes, and yes. Waiting and yes. Okay. Wonderful. All right, let us continue on this next journey. So what we're going to take with us on this journey, the nomadic journey today, we're really going to focus on to activate your superpower mindset. Now, Adrienne, who is here today, she shared with us is about the superpower mindset, which is the nomadic mindset. The nomadic mindset through mobility here. And see how your performance is powered by mobility. This is our journey. And learn to connect the dots of your own experience. A lot of our life is wrapped up in the past because that's all we really truly know. And the present is really where we are right now, and we're not sure of the future. So when we are able to look and connect the dots of our past experiences, this shares a lot of the mobility of our performances, not only in the past, but also how we've transferred knowledge to where we are today. And this transference of knowledge, some people think, oh no, I cannot do this position or this job or think of that because I don't have the skills. Well, you have knowledge which can transform. And this is all mobility, is this transference of information. And then we'll have the question and answer at the end. So my questions to you, this might be happening to you, for example, is your performance slipping because your map no longer fits the terrain? Are you losing the drive to perform at your best in the constant change? Do you feel stuck, unsure how to level up your performance? These may be some questions that are happening with you or your colleagues or friends, or even in organizations with the changes in the very uncertain world that we live in. And let us see how we can become unstuck, that we can win our performances better and we stop slipping our performances. So let us move to the next. Perhaps your superpower is just mindset is not ignited. And let's move towards that ignition, is that fuel to reignite it into this performance today. I am very excited to share with you some very interesting stories. And this first story is in December 2017. I find myself in the Masai Mara in Kenya. It's a beautiful location. I'm staying at the Mara Simba Lodge. And as I look out onto my balcony and look into the Taiga River below me, I can see a crocodile. I can see baboons on the other side staring at the open-mouthed crocodile. And I'm wondering who's going to win out here. Will the baboons be able to get across the river or not? But as I was there, I was doing research, as Aggie had said, on the nomadic mindset, but also looking for what is the nomadic mindset. And I was spending time in the Masai Mara because I was curious of the history of the Maasai people and the stories that come from their leadership. And from that, what I did was I was able to speak to Benson Mutare. And Benson Mutari is this fellow. He was a waiter at the Marasimba Lodge, and I wanted to have a conversation with him. He was a warrior. He had come through the warrior status that takes for people who are the Maasai people, especially the males. And I wanted to sit down and ask him about the history. So as he sat down, he sat with an incredibly long spine, and his head was just still. There was an incredible stillness that came over me. His eyes were just landed on my eyes. They were incredibly beautiful to see how he was looking at me. But I felt that he was observing at the same time. And I asked him a variety of first world questions, such as, how do you develop trust, or how do you build trust? How do you deal with change? And so many other things. And he would share with me, and every time he would share the answer, he would say, "Thank you very much for that question." He was very polite. So I asked him, why do animals migrate? And I was very, very curious. And he said, this is a good question to ask. And he said, the reason that animals migrate are two reasons. One, because of seasonal change, so that they can move to a better pastures where they can feed much better because the old pasture had already worn out. And the second is to give birth. And I thought, my goodness, this is really very interesting. It's a wonderful metaphor on so many different levels of mobility. It's not just migration, but it is mobility. And in that mobility, I realized that this is not just the flexibility of the mind and ideas and births to questions and birth to ideas and thoughts and creativity and innovation. It was birth. And that's why we shift. So metaphorically, we move inside of ourselves. And this was fascinating. And I kept on with the conversations with Benson. However, let us move to the next. He said to me this. He said, we are migrating as a people. Where we were is not where we are evolving. And I love this quote. This quote brings me such strength and such brilliance of openness of spirit. It is about life. It is about performance. This is what we do as a performer in life. And when I say a performer, everyone is a performer. Whether you're a dancer, whether you're an artist, whether you are a CEO, whoever, you're an accountant, you're always performing. Something is happening. And in that something is mobility and migration of ideas. So when you do this, when you look at this quote, I invite you also to say, okay, I am migrating. Where I was is not where I am. I am evolving. I invite you to do that on your own time. And I dare you then. I dare you to move and to evolve. But before we go anywhere, we need to know the definitions. Maybe you know from before, is that I love definitions. And so let us do the definition of what is to migrate. But before we get there, I know you want to know what you're going to get out of this. You're going to activate the nomadic mindset that gets you unstuck. You're going to integrate mobility into how you lead, grow, and perform. And you're going to connect your past to your next bold, courageous move. Migrate. What does migrate mean? It comes from Latin, migrare, means to move from one place to another. There's also a derivation, which is meg, which means to change, and the root of English words move and migrate. Now, I want to share with you a little video from the migration of the wildebeest. And maybe some of you have seen this in historical or documentaries, but it is really a beautiful way to see migration. And what I want you to do is I want you to look very much into the picture, the movie, and not just see the migration, but see how are they migrating? How are they finding their way across the river? All right. Are you ready? Few hands. Are you ready to see the video? All right. Let's go. All right. Migration. This is migration. May I ask you to put into the chat what came up for you? What resonated for you? What did you see about migration that resonated for you in this video? What is it all about? How did they migrate? How do they move forward across and down the hill and the bank? I invite you to put it into your focus. Together, it's smooth, flow, determination, dare and do it away, togetherness, pack mentality, herd, move with the herd together. Yeah, numbers and groups, and fast, migration, powerful, noisy, tumultuous, forward. Absolutely. All of these things are incredible, and this is what migration is. And this can be a metaphor for what migration is for you. And that means when you move your mind. Now, remember what I had said last week, or the last episode, is that I said the meaning of nomad is the movement of the mind. And this is exactly where we are today in this understanding. So let us move to the next, mobility. So mobility is this wonderful word in Latin, movere, means to move, and mobilitas is mobility. Now, there's different types of mobility in our life. There's physical mobility, which means our physical body is moving around and exercising and doing all sorts of activities. And inside, not only the inside, but the outside is part of that mobility, because your venous system and your heart is all mobile. It's moving, and the blood is going through your system. Social. We have social, which is social mobility, which is networking. It is social media. It is also how you become social in communications and within work, and working back and forth between all of the colleagues and all of the people who you are working with in the upper hierarchy, as well as laterally and vertically. Organizational mobility is generally seen as mobility between positions and also different departments, and also hierarchy, whether it's vertical or horizontal. It is about that inner mobility when somebody is getting a little bit tired of the position that they're in and they want to enrich themselves and they want to grow. Technology, there's a technological mobility, which is mobilizing data and migration. You can change the data. You have AI, you have a variety of digital transformation tools. All of this is mobility in itself. Economic mobility, and that in itself, we are in stress at the moment because of the uncertainty due to tariffs, and that is mobility. And you can see the lack of mobility, the less mobility from ports and being able to do shipping and all of the different aspects of that particular area. But it's also numbers. It is also anything to do with finances is economic mobility. And geographic means that moving from place to place in different countries, also within your own country, within even your own city. This is all mobility. So can you see then and experience that mobility is happening all the time? And sometimes, though, we say we're stuck, but in actual fact, we're not stuck. It's like a dam in a river. The water will always find a way forward, as your performance will always find something. And that is mobility. You will find the mobility around the dam. It is how you want to make your life. And this is part of the nomadic mindset. And let's continue on now, being more mobile. I would like you to reflect on these questions, and you can think about them. You don't necessarily need to put them in the answers into the chat, but I want you to think about, how has mobility shown up in your life or work? And what has stopped your mobility in your life or work? And what have you learned from mobility? Now, you may never have thought of it as being mobility. But mobility, as I said, will affect your performance. Just imagine when you're stuck, when you don't have the skills. It limits you. And this is what is important for us to find out. All right, let us continue on. While in southern Morocco, I was at the border, at this edge of the Atlantic Ocean, and I was having a wonderful conversation with Asidaram, a Berber physicist. And the Berbers are the majority of the tribe, which is in Morocco and some across the Maghreb, which is the northern Africa. And what I was talking with him about was learning about the Berbers. I was learning about his stories, his family stories. How did they see leadership? How did they do business? And this was very enlightening to me. And at one point, he said to me, you need to have a nomadic mindset to connect the dots. You need to have a nomadic mindset to connect the dots. And why did he say this? He said this because you need that fluidity, you need that mobility to be able to go through and have the courage to go through the connecting your dots of your life experiences and your learnings through that. So the learnings, what we do, most of the learnings when we connect the dots, we look at the headline. So we look at, I was a CEO in 1917, ha 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 ha. Or I was in Morocco in 2010. All of these things are top line headlines, but they just tell you the bigger story. But the real learning and the real mobility is underneath the iceberg. This is where the true learning, which helps us perform better. And you may think, oh, I've never done this before, or I've thought about this before to do this, but I'm going to share with you how I've done it in my life. And maybe that can help you and to give you some emphasis and some impact, and also to inspire you to look at yours and how that journey and that transference of skills has helped you transform in the many different ways that you have in the positions you've had, or living in different countries, businesses, or even just your career in different ways that it's helped you. But this is nomadic mindset come alive. All right. When I was a young skater, I became eventually a Canadian national figure skating champion. And yes, this is me with hair and my jumpsuit, my performance suit with my medals. And I had a wonderful experience of doing this in my life. And I lost, I gained a lot of accolades. However, when I was 19, I decided to retire. And I retired because my father was retiring and I could not afford to do it anymore. So I took off and I went to Australia to live. I immigrated to Australia to teach skating, my first teaching job. And I stayed there for a year and a bit. And then my father had passed away and I went back home to Canada. And this was a traumatic experience as well, but I wanted to spend the time with my mother. I went back to university, and in my university, I decided to take up studies towards becoming a doctor. Why? Because of my father, who always wanted to be a doctor. And so I went into this education and my degree. In the last year of my degree, I was so uptight, I was anxious, I did not want to do medicine. And so what happened was, I said to my mother one day, I said, I really don't want to do medicine. And she said to me, well, why are you doing it? And I was quite shocked at what she said. And I said, well, I thought that you and Dad wanted me to do medicine. She said, no, you've made that up. I don't know where that came from. You can do anything you want. And this, all of a sudden, she didn't know what she did, but she really opened up that fire inside of me, which opened up that nomad at that time. And I just took off. I decided I want to dance because I was dancing at the time. And so I went and I moved to New York City to dance and to study with all of the best dancers. And then during that time, I thought, no, if I'm going to be a dancer, I need to perform. And to perform, I need consistency. And so how do I get that performance hours? And so I went and I asked my friends and my colleagues, and they said to me, go to Vegas, go to Vegas, go to Vegas and do some cabaret work. And they said, well, you can go to Paris. And I said, well, Vegas, Paris, Vegas, Paris, Vegas, Paris. There's no doubt in my mind it is Paris. So off I went and just went to Paris, and I got the job dancing at the Moulin Rouge. But I realized through not only doing that, but what my mother gave me as the impetus, I realized that I had to not have any boundaries, no borders or limitations. And this is what I was now freed from, the stuckness of going through doing something in my life which I really did not want to do. So the boundaries were gone, the barriers were gone, and the limitations. So this allowed me to go to New York. This allowed me the impetus to go to Paris. And during my time there, I realized that your true nature is to discover, to explore, to be free. And you must allow yourself this freedom. And that is what I also learned by letting go and being unstuck from something that I did not resonate with in my life. And this allowed my performance to glow. So this is me at the doing the can, something that we did twice a night. And what did I do? I would warm up every night, and I would then go on and do performance starting at 10 o'clock and finishing at 2 in the morning. But I developed some consistency. I would do the same warm up every night. I would do my professional ability on stage as better and better, because my request to myself was that to find something new and fresh in every one of my performances. But this gave me consistency. So without the limitations, I focused on the consistency. I kept mobilizing myself. This in itself is mobility. This is migration in itself. And then I had the wonderful experience as I moved forward is to have this position as the director and choreographer of the closing ceremonies of the Olympic Games. Now, this was a very different situation because this was a massive 2 billion people audience and hundreds of thousands of dollars to put this on. And I had 350 performers of all different ages, from 4 years old up into 70 years old. It was quite amazing. But most of all, this performance was not really about my performance. It was about my country. It was about the pride that I had. And I want to say before this, I never had any pride about being Canadian. But this developed that resonance inside of me, that yearning, that love for being who I was as a Canadian being. But this was also a learning. This was mobility to move from self and my ego of any sorts to that of community and country. That is a mobility into itself as well. From there, I went into big productions. And the producer came in one day and he said to me, "You're fired." This was the producer of Disney on Ice. And he said to me, "You're fired." All of a sudden, he said to me again, "I want you to go downstairs, take your skates and all of your belongings, go out the back door, and never come back, and do not talk to anyone." I was not only in a state of shock, I had no idea why. But what I did was I went home back to Canada, and I was not able to do anything at this point in time. My soul felt like it was dead. I felt nothing inside. I felt that I was no longer a choreographer or a director. I thought I didn't have the abilities to do this. I was stuck. I was stuck in the mud of myself. And then slowly I took one step out of that. I found The Artist's Way, which is a beautiful book for unleashing your creativity. And then one day I found meditation. And how did I find meditation? I knew that a friend of mine who was living in the same building, he had done meditation and he followed a guru. And I thought I must ask him this about his guru and also meditation. And I was standing on the corner one day when I was thinking this, and I turned to my left and he was standing right there. And I thought, oh, this is a sign. So we went for coffee and he told me all about it. And that's when that began. But what happened through all of this journey, from the failure of being fired and losing my soul and thinking I was never going to work again, what happened was I found the most important thing. I said to myself, I will never, ever do another show or choreography unless it came from my heart. And that may sound soapy or whichever, but it's true. The next big production I did was 2 years later, and it was called Exotica, Journey to the Heart, and it was this exploration of what I transformed my experience and my problem and of being fired into a production of the journey. This is mobility. The mobility to go from being fired and down in the dumps, the mobility to come up one step at a time. This is a migration as well. This, eventually, I did shows, lots of shows for Holiday on Ice. And then at one point, I also became a choreographer. A coach, a leadership coach, and a speaker, a professional speaker. And then also as a leadership facilitator. And this is what I do now. And this is what I love doing, is working with organizations, multinational organizations, taking them on leadership journeys and coaching their employees. But at one point, I became very uncomfortable with all of this. I was not feeling great about it. I was feeling that not only was I not doing my own work, but I was longing for something else. And this was being uncomfortable. But I realized, and what I knew before was to become comfortable with the uncomfortable. And being comfortable with the uncomfortable is very much about, a lot of sports people will say, top champions and world and Olympic champions will say, when I get too comfortable, I know I won't win. And so I need to go back into that discomfort, that uncomfortable zone. That's my land of learning. And many say this. And so what happened was I had lost my terrain in this. And I realized from there that I was bored. I was bored with what I was doing, speaking about the theme, and unfulfilled and seeking. So now there was another mobility to a downward, but I needed to mobilize myself up into something. But how was that to be? And I mobilized my performance into finding the nomadic mindset. And that is another story to be told, but how I found it. But it was what has led me to where I am today and where we are tonight. And that is really about movement. And from there, I have to share part of this story, is that when I was sitting in this yurt in Mongolia with my team and the guests, my Mongolian guests, all of a sudden I was sitting there in conversation, and it was like I had a zoom back of connecting the dots of my life. And I could feel it and I could see it through my life, that I was going through and I was connecting the dots from a very low level of the bottom of the iceberg. And I could see all the learnings along the way. And that is what had led me here. And most people along my journey had said, why are you moving on? You've lived in so many different countries. You've also worked in many different cities. Why don't you just stay put? Stay put. You're successful. You're making money. Just continue to do the same thing over and over again. And I thought, I'm confused. Why are they saying this? Because I was being successful. It wasn't wrong, but I felt wrong. But in that yurt, I realized that I wasn't running away. I was running towards knowledge, my heart, my goals, my performances in life, my achievements. I was looking towards something greater. And that has been that movement forward. And what is that movement? That movement is mobility with no borders, no limitations, being free, being the true nature who you are. This is a nomadic mindset. But it was no easy journey. I needed help along the way. And that help was through some coaching and also speaking to mentors. And also that is what is happening now, is that I'm taking this information and transferring it into leadership journeys. So that is what my book is now being done, is to take that. I love this picture. This tells the old and the new. And I love that he's holding the goat. And it's a beautiful picture, I think. Anyway, I would like now for you to think about those questions that I had asked you earlier about mobility. When has it shown up in your life? Have you been stuck from mobility? But I want you now is to take this step, and I invite you, is to walk, jump, run, just move. And I dare you, like Dorji was saying, as I dare all of you, to truly to move and to evolve. This is the only way to move forward in your performance in life and digging into your nomadic mindset. Never forgetting that you have a builder and also a settler mindset as well. And this is part of our life and part of our living, is to have this wholeness within our body. And we're able to have the plasticity and the flexibility of migration in our body, our mind, our soul, our heart as well. And this is what happens. So I leave you with these questions and I think about it. Are you ready to activate a new map? Are you ready to integrate mobility into your new terrain? Are you ready to connect your past to your next courageous move? Are you ready to let the power of mobility reignite your performance? If you're ready, then shake your hands and let's go.